Surely, can't get any better than this, can it? From surround sound digital entertainment to state-of-the-art ovens, we've come to expect pretty high standards in our homes these days. But there's one practical, brilliantly designed sink appliance that more and more people are adding to their kitchen. It sits unobtrusively in the sink, so most of the time you wouldn't even know it was there. But once you've used it, you'll wonder how you ever did without it. This is the new Evolution Food Waste Disposer from InSinkErator, the world's leading brand. Talk about a must-have accessory for the modern kitchen. InSinkErator food waste disposers don't just offer practical, contemporary convenience, they provide an environmentally sound answer to the growing problem of food waste. But first, let's talk about day-to-day mess. However careful and organised we are, pedal bins, bin bags and trips to the dustbin or wheelie bin don't exactly fill us with joy. The fact is that 20 to 30% of kitchen waste is food waste, and that can mean slimy, smelly, messy stuff to deal with, especially when things go wrong. If it's food waste, it can go off quite quickly in a warm kitchen, causing smells and providing a haven for bacteria and insects. And if you live in a flat with lots of steps between you and the outside world, well, you get the picture. So, let's get back to the alternative that InSinkErator can provide. With the new Evolution models, which sit at the top of the comprehensive InSinkErator range, the company has redefined food waste disposers. Thanks to technological advances, the Evolution 100 and 200 models are the quietest, finest grinding and most powerful ever. Both feature state-of-the-art grind technology and quiet technology, so when it comes to food waste disposers, InSinkErator has set a new standard. As soon as the fresh food is prepared, the waste can be dealt with instantly and effectively. A power booster circuit with microprocessor technology increases torque to tackle the most difficult to grind foods. Turn on the tap, press the switch, push the waste into position, and away it goes. The food waste disposer grinds it effortlessly and safely into tiny particles that are automatically flushed away down the kitchen drain to join the local waste treatment system or a septic tank. Safety is no problem for a young family, or anyone for that matter. The grind ring that deals with the scraps in seconds is entirely safe, and there are no blades. As we've already heard, the quiet technology of the Evolution models has helped to create the quietest food waste disposers ever, which makes our models perfect for modern, open-plan living. As for practical matters, InSinkErator also scores top marks. Every model is compact enough to fit neatly under the sink without taking up valuable storage space. There's a quick lock-mounting assembly across the range which makes for easy installation. Here's what the inside of a disposer looks like. The food waste is flushed down the sink by cold water and drops onto a revolving plate in the chamber. The spinning action forces the waste against the outer wall, grinding it into fine particles in seconds. The alternative to food waste disposers, the old way to dispose of food waste, is causing concern around the world. Governments everywhere are committed to reducing the amount of waste going to landfill. And think about this, all that food waste going to landfill needs to be collected and transported. So, when it comes to carbon footprints, disposers score highly again. Food scraps that have been through disposers can be used to create biosolids or biogas as part of a holistic waste management approach. When the recycled material is used as a power source, soil conditioner or fertilizer, the cycle begins again. The revolutionary grind technology of Evolution simply powers through all kinds of food, full stop. Spaghetti, chicken bones, meat bones, eggshells, coffee grinds, vegetables, fruit, congealed leftovers, fish bones. The list is endless. And at the end of it all, your kitchen is left spotless, leaving you to get on and do the things you'd rather be doing. You certainly won't have to worry about your InSinkErator food waste disposer. Our high-quality design is maintenance-free, so once you fit it, you can forget it. There are more than 75 million food waste disposers in the world, and 3/4 of them are made by Incinerator. Isn't it time you put one in your kitchen? Incinerator. Solutions for sinks.
لا يمكن الحصول على ما هو أفضل من ذلك، أليس كذلك؟ نتوقع توفر أفضل المعايير في منازلنا اليوم، بدءا من الترفيه الصوتي الرقمي إلى الأفران المتطورة. كما توجد وحدة حوض مطبخ عملية وبديعة التصميم يتزايد عليها الطلب يوميا. يتم وضعها في الحوض بحيث لا تكون بارزة وبالتالي لا تشعرين بوجودها، ولكن بمجرد استعمالها سوف تتساءلين كيف كانت الأمور تسير بدونها. إنها وحدة التخلص من مخلفات الطعام الجديدة المتطورة تراز إيفولوشن من إنسينكريتور، الشركة العالمية الرائدة. إن هذه الوحدة من إنسينكريتور لا توفر طريقة مريحة وسهلة وحديثة فحسب، بل توفر حلا لمشكلة مخلفات الطعام المتزايدة بشكل يحافظ على البيئة. ولكن فلنتحدث أولا عن هذه الفوضى اليومية، فبالرغم من دقتنا وتنظيمنا فلا يسعدنا رؤية الصناديق والحقائب منتشرة في كل مكان أو التجول إلى سلة المهملات أو صندوق القمامة. تمثل مخلفات الطعام 20 إلى 30% من مخلفات المطبخ، مما يعني وجود مخلفات لزجة وغير مرتبة وكريهة الرائحة يجب التعامل معها لا سيما عندما تتفاقم الأمور. مخلفات الطعام تتسبب في الروائح الكريهة وانتشار البكتيريا والحشرات عندما تنتشر بسرعة في مطبخ درجة حرارته عالية. وإذا كنت تعيش في شقة مغلقة تفتقد إلى منافذ التهوية الطبيعية فستلاحظ ذلك بنفسك. دعنا نرجع الآن إلى البديل الذي يمكن أن توفره شركة إنسينكريتور. فبظهور طرز إيفولوشن الجديدة المتطورة التي تأتي في مقدمة مجموعة منتجات إنسينكريتور المتكاملة، قامت الشركة بتحسين وحدات التخلص من مخلفات الطعام. وبفضل التقدم التكنولوجي أصبحت طرازان إيفولوشن 100 و 200 أهدأ وأقوى وحدات طحن على الإطلاق، حيث يتميزان بتقنية متقدمة وهادئة للطحن، وبالتالي وضعت شركة إنسينكريتور معياراً جديداً لوحدات التخلص من مخلفات الطعام. بمجرد تجهيز الطعام الطازج يمكن معالجة مخلفات الطعام فوراً وبشكل فعال، حيث أن تقنية دائرة تحسين الطاقة المزودة بمعالج دقيق تزيد من عزم التدوير اللازم لمعالجة أنواع الطعام التي يصعب طحنها. أدر اللسان لتشغيل الجهاز واضغط على المفتاح ثم ادفع مخلفات الطعام في المكان المخصص لها لتتم معالجتها. تقوم وحدة التخلص من مخلفات الطعام بطحن هذه المخلفات بسهولة وأمان إلى جزيئات دقيقة يتم إنزالها في نظام الصرف بالمطبخ لتلحق بنظام معالجة المخلفات المحلية أو خزان الصرف الصحي. لا داعي لقلق الأسرة الصغيرة أو أي شخص بشأن الأمان، حيث أن حلقة الطحن التي تعالج فتات الطعام في ثوان معدودة آمنة تماما وخالية من أي شفرات. إن التقنية الهادئة لطرز إيفولوشن تساعد على إنتاج وحدات تخلص من مخلفات الطعام هي الأكثر هدوءًا، مما يجعل الطرز الخاصة بنا مثالية للمعيشة الحديثة ذات التصميمات الرحبة. واستطاعت إنسينكريتور أيضاً تحقيق أرقام قياسية، فكل طراز دقيق الحجم بحيث يمكن وضعه بشكل مناسب أسفل حوض المطبخ دون أن يشغل مساحة تخزين تذكر. ويوجد جهاز تركيب القفل السريع عبر مجموعة المنتج مما يسهل عملية التثبيت. هذه هي وحدة التخلص من مخلفات الطعام من الداخل، حيث يتم إنزال مخلفات الطعام في الحوض بفعل المياه الباردة وتتساقط في طبق دوار بالتجويف المخصص لذلك، وتعمل حركة الدوران السريع على دفع المخلفات في اتجاه عكس الجدار الخارجي، مما يعمل على طحنها إلى جزيئات دقيقة في ثوان معدودة. إن البديل لوحدات التخلص من مخلفات الطعام، الطريقة القديمة للتخلص من مخلفات الطعام، هو موضوع يشغل بال الجميع على مستوى العالم، حيث تلتزم الحكومات بالحد من كمية مخلفات الطعام التي توضع في القمامة. فكر في هذا الأمر، كل مخلفات الطعام هذه يجب جمعها ونقلها، كما تسجل وحدات التخلص من المخلفات أرقاما قياسية فيما يتعلق ببصمات الأصابع الكربونية، حيث يمكن استخدام فتات الطعام الذي يمر خلال وحدات التخلص من المخلفات لتكوين مواد صلبة حيوية أو غازات حيوية كجزء من أسلوب إدارة المخلفات العام. وعند استخدام المادة المعاد تدويرها كمصدر للطاقة أو حاوية صلبة أو سماد تبدأ الدورة من جديد. إن تقنية الطحن المتقدمة والفريدة من نوعها التي تتميز بها طرز إيفولوشن تعمل ببساطة على سحق جميع أنواع الطعام، مثل المكرونة الاسباجيتي، عظام الدجاج، عظام اللحوم، قشور البيض، حبوب القهوة، الخضروات، الفاكهة، وبقايا الطعام المتجمدة وشوك السمك إلى آخره. وفوق هذا كله يصبح مطبخك نظيفا، الأمر الذي يتيح لك الفرصة للقيام بمهامك الأخرى. وبالتأكيد لا داعي للقلق بشأن وحدة التخلص من مخلفات الطعام إنسينكريتور، حيث أن تصميمنا فائق الجودة ولا يتطلب إجراء صيانة. وهناك ما يزيد عن 75 مليون وحدة من وحدات التخلص من مخلفات الطعام في جميع أنحاء العالم تقوم شركة إنسينكريتور بتصنيع 3/4. ألم يئن لك أن تقتني هذه الوحدة في مطبخك؟ إنسينكريتور Solutions for Sinks.
This looks just like a typical modern kitchen. As well as the usual cooking and washing up facilities, today's kitchen has devices in it to save time, labour, and make it a far more comfortable place to be. But this kitchen has one feature that more and more people are choosing as essential for a convenient, easy-to-manage, hygienic kitchen. You wouldn't even know it was here until you see this. How do you deal with your food waste? What about fish? Do you still put messy peelings and scrapings into a pedal bin? Do you always seem to be making trips to the rubbish bin whatever the weather? If you live in a flat, you know it can be even more of a problem. Food waste can be a major hassle. We all know it can go off rapidly, particularly in a warm kitchen. It can smell and be a haven for germs and other problems. But here in this kitchen, modern, hygienic, well-managed, all that is a thing of the past, because it's been fitted with an InSinkErator food waste disposer. Here you put your food scraps and leftovers down the sink. And within seconds, they're not just out of the kitchen, but out of your home as well. Simply turn on the cold water tap and switch on the disposer. It literally does its work in seconds. It's as simple as that. And today's models are surprisingly quiet. The InSinkErator food waste disposer in action. It's easy, quick, clean and efficient. With its unique action, the InSinkErator disposer reduces your food waste to fine particles suspended in water. These are flushed through the waste pipe in the normal way, and with an air switch, your kitchen food waste disappears at the touch of a button. InSinkErator food waste disposers are designed to handle vegetables, fruit, chicken bones, chop bones, fish bones, eggshells, congealed leftovers, and much, much more. Let me take you inside an InSinkErator food waste disposer. The food waste is flushed down the sink by the cold water supply and drops into the chamber onto a revolving metal plate. The spinning action forces the waste against the outer wall. In seconds, it's ground into fine particles small enough to drop through these tiny holes in the plate and down the drain into the sewage system. No knives, no blades, no danger. Compare that with the traditional way. Around a quarter of all household rubbish is food waste, and it all has to be collected and taken to landfill sites. These sites represent a major and growing environmental issue, and there's a government commitment to significantly reduce them. The use of waste disposers is a positive contribution to environmental improvement by eliminating the need for collection and landfill for this kind of food waste. What's more, the waste from disposers can be treated and turned into granules for use again as agricultural fertilizer. So there's a valuable twofold benefit for our environment. It's not surprising that more and more people are turning to food waste disposers. There are over 50 million in use worldwide, and 3 out of every 4 are made by InSinkErator. One is installed somewhere every 6 seconds. They have so many advantages. An incinerator food waste disposer is hygienic, simple to operate. It eliminates bad smells. It's extremely convenient and environmentally responsible. Almost any sink can accommodate a food waste disposer, and you're still left with plenty of space to store cleaning materials. There are registered installers throughout the country, but the unit comes with easy-to-follow instructions if you want to fit it yourself. And here's something else. Every incinerator unit is designed to be maintenance-free. Just install and forget. There's a model to suit your purpose and your pocket. All units come with full warranties and comply with international electrical and safety standards. Incinerator have a national network of trained service agents in the unlikely event you will need one. Once you have an incinerator food waste disposer, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. So, no more messy scraps, smelly leftovers, and fewer trips to the rubbish bin. An incinerator food waste disposer is the cleaner, more hygienic, and simpler way to solve the problem of food waste and be environmentally responsible. The incinerator food waste disposer is possibly the most useful device many kitchens don't have. Incinerator, the world's #1 food waste disposer.
Here's a quick overview that shows how a food waste disposer works. Many people think a disposer works like a blender, with spinning blades chopping and breaking down the waste. In reality, disposers work in a different way, and there are no blades involved. Instead, impellers or lugs mounted on a spinning plate use centrifugal force to continuously force food waste particles against a stationary grind ring. The grind ring breaks down the food waste into very fine particles, virtually liquefying them. After they're ground, the running water flushes the particles through the grind ring and out of the disposer and into your wastewater pipe. From there, it flows to a wastewater treatment plant or your septic system. Food waste disposers are an environmentally responsible alternative to typical disposal methods like landfills, and they can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Food waste is even being turned into renewable power by many wastewater treatment plants, and the biosolids processed into fertilizer used by farmers, golf courses, and home gardeners.
Where does your food waste go? A lot of people just throw it in the trash when they're done with it. But what happens to it then? In many areas, it gets trucked to a landfill, and trucks give off carbon monoxide. And once it's there, it starts to decompose, emitting methane, much of which goes into the atmosphere. And experts agree that methane is a major contributor to global warming. But food isn't the only thing at landfills. Other stuff, like metals, can mix with your food waste, creating a toxic liquid that can sometimes seep into the groundwater. Of course, you can always compost, but that's not practical for everybody. So are there other options? What if you just put it down a disposer instead? Well, after a trip through the sewer system, it ends up at the wastewater treatment plant, where modern, capably equipped plants can turn it into renewable energy and fertilizer. How? By letting microorganisms eat it. Like the food at the landfills, they let off methane. But at properly equipped plants, the methane can be captured and used to generate renewable energy. Many wastewater treatment plants can also turn food waste into fertilizer to help grow new food. That, once you're finished with, you can feel free to toss down the disposer. To learn more, visit incinerator.com/green.
Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about food waste. Did you know that each week the average family of 4 produces 36 pounds of food waste? 36 pounds every week, and about half of that goes into landfills. That's 19 million tons in the U.S. alone. But as you know, there's a lot of interest and a lot of pressure these days to live greener lives, to design and build greener homes, restaurants, and institutions, to be environmentally responsible. You might be surprised to learn how much of an impact people can have simply by the way they handle their food waste. I'll demonstrate by using this. Throughout this program, I'll show you what happens when an apple is disposed of 3 different ways: in a landfill, in a compost pile, and down a food waste disposer. And as the apple makes its way down each path, you'll learn what's being said about adding food waste to a landfill, why composting is a good option, but it may not be practical for everyone everywhere. And though there's no silver bullet, when viewed holistically, you'll see how disposers can be an important part of a waste management program that's both practical and environmentally responsible by sending food waste to a wastewater treatment plant. We've been throwing away food waste like this for as long as humans have existed. So what's another apple? Well, take a look at what happens when we toss it in the trash. To begin with, this garbage might sit in the trash for a few days and start to smell, generating odor and bacteria. Then, when you take it out to the sidewalk or into the alley, it can attract vermin. Finally, the truck that takes it away emits diesel fumes into the atmosphere all the way to the landfill. Some garbage is transported by truck hundreds of miles, releasing carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide into the air. But not all waste that's hauled away is transported to landfills. In some municipalities, trucks take the food waste to be incinerated. Incineration accounts for about 13% of all waste disposal. Food waste is 70% water, so it takes more energy to burn it than the waste itself contains. An uncontrolled incineration can release harmful emissions like nitrogen and sulfur oxide. But let's get back to what happens when food waste arrives at the landfill. When food waste is buried in a landfill, it begins to decompose and generates a greenhouse gas called methane. Many experts agree that methane is a major contributor to global warming. Now, it's possible to capture methane gas and reuse it as energy, but food waste decomposes so quickly, it's challenging to capture the methane, and not all landfills are set up to do it. Plus, logistically, it's hard to capture the methane that escapes through the soil here. In addition to releasing methane into the air, decomposing food waste at a landfill can pose another problem. Remember we said that food waste is 70% water. The food waste liquefies when it decomposes. In a landfill, that liquid can mix with metals and other materials in the landfill and create a toxic liquid called leachate. When left unchecked, the leachate can contaminate groundwater, and in many cases, it ends up being pumped to the wastewater treatment plant.
My name is Peter Duck. I'm from Banff, Alberta, in the heart of the Canadian Rocky Mountains. I'm the Toward Zero Waste Coordinator for the Bow Valley Waste Management Commission. We're very concerned about landfills because of the environmental problems they create on site, the leachate, odors and so forth. But we're also concerned about the gases they emit, primarily the powerful greenhouse gas methane. We're surrounded by majestic mountains with glaciers that are melting away very fast. And so the climate change problem is something that's in the forefront of the minds of the residents in our communities, and they want to reduce their influence on that process. We find food waste disposers, or garburator as we say in Canada, are a good alternative for handling food waste because it avoids the need to transport heavy food waste, food scraps, long distances to bury them in a landfill where they are out of sight and out of mind, but not necessarily out of the ecosystem.
So, for reasons both on the ground and in the air, food waste and landfills aren't a great combination. Trucks carrying food waste to landfills burn fuel and generate diesel emissions. And at the landfill, the waste creates methane and leachate. The landfill is not the best place to discard food waste. It's hard to argue with the environmental benefits of composting. You'll see for yourself when this hits the compost bin. Out here, Composting organic materials like food waste makes a lot of sense. Pile up your food waste, leaves, grass clippings, anything that's organic. Carefully layer it, regularly water it, turn it, and eventually bugs and worms break it down and turn it into a rich soil called compost. The trouble is, with composting you can't put everything into a compost pile. Meat and dairy products can create odors in a compost pile, and they can attract vermin. Composting also requires space and labor to tend the pile, and to avoid the release of methane into the air and leachate into the ground. Colder temperatures can inhibit compost culture activation. And for those who live in high-rise buildings, well, composting is a challenge. Some municipalities collect kitchen and organic waste using what's called a green bin. But that requires transportation, meaning the burning of fuel and emissions when transporting the waste to a central disposition site.
My name is Dan Noble. I'm Executive Director of the Association of Compost Producers. Backyard composting is a good option for food scraps for people who have the space to do the composting, as well as who want to take the time and the energy and the attention it requires to manage a compost pile on an ongoing basis. If you don't manage your compost pile properly, a number of things can go wrong. And one of the main ones is that the pile can go anaerobic, meaning that you don't have sufficient oxygen feeding the compost pile, and as it goes anaerobic you produce methane gas. And methane gas is a very potent greenhouse gas, about 22 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Disposers work with backyard composters because you can take the animal byproduct materials like bones and milks and cheeses and allow them to go down the disposer while you keep the green waste in your compost pile. The animal byproducts are then treated properly in the sewage system at the wastewater treatment plant.
So, composting may not be practical for everyone everywhere. That's why food waste disposers are a nice complement or alternative to composting. Disposers can handle most food waste that composting can't, and disposers offer the convenience that many people want. Take this apple. If you put it down one of today's modern food waste disposers, it'll be pulverized into particles less than a quarter inch in size, which is great news, because discarding food waste in a disposer, then to an appropriate wastewater treatment plant, can be practical, convenient, and environmentally responsible. We're going to show you what happens when an apple is ground in a food waste disposer, how it flows to a modern wastewater treatment plant, where it can be used to generate energy, and where the solids left behind can be turned into fertilizer, how that fertilizer can be used in agriculture to grow more apples. And the cycle begins again. Let's take it from the beginning. In the appropriate situation, food waste ground into fine particles and flushed into your sewage system flows to a wastewater treatment facility. Fitting, since food scraps are about 70% water. Here, food waste doesn't have to be wasted at all.
My name is Kevin Schaefer. I'm Executive Director of the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. Putting food waste into a wastewater stream is a win-win for the environment, for energy, for the sustainability movement. It allows us to take something that could go to a landfill and really use it for benefits for the entire region.
Let's take a look at what happens when wastewater reaches a modern treatment plant. As wastewater from homes and buildings first enters the treatment plant, screens and grates remove the large objects. From there, during its primary treatment, the wastewater enters large settling tanks. Here, grease and oil float to the top and are removed, and heavier materials sink to the bottom and are removed. The water then moves to a secondary treatment, where microscopic organisms or bugs are brought in. They break down whatever organic materials remain in the water. Finally, the water goes through disinfection before the water is discharged into rivers or lakes. Now, back to the role that food waste plays in this process at a modern wastewater treatment plant. When the heavy solid material or sludge is removed from the water in primary and secondary treatment, it's sent to something called a digester. Now, digesters are designed to break down the solids so that the volume of that material can be reduced. These digesters work in one of two ways, either through what's called aerobic digestion, which means it uses oxygen, or anaerobic digestion, which is without oxygen. It's important for you to know which process is used in your community, This modern wastewater treatment plant in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, uses anaerobic digestion. These digesters don't use oxygen, so when the food waste in the solids is digested by the microorganisms, or bugs, they release a gas that's about 60% methane. Here, that gas is harnessed and used to generate heat and electricity at the plant.
So we're able to capture that methane gas and burn it and use it to produce energy. So we're actually reducing the energy needs of the region, and we save our taxpayers about $2 million a year.
Now, in cases where oxygen is used in the process, which is called aerobic digestion, methane is not produced. So the waste is reduced without the benefit of providing a renewable source of energy. In either case, however, we could still benefit from the second byproduct of the digestion process, the biosolids themselves. Which brings us to the next step in our circle. Those biosolids at the wastewater treatment facility can be converted into fertilizer and sent back to the land. This fertilizer is a better soil conditioner than the synthetic fertilizers that farmers might purchase.
At the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, what we're able to do with those biosolids is produce a lawn fertilizer called Milorganite, Milwaukee Organic Nitrogen. It's a natural fertilizer that is safe for the environment, and it's a revenue stream for us as well. We can offset the cost of our process by selling this Milorganite as a lawn fertilizer. Milorganite really is looked to by the lawn industry. They really like this material because it's natural, and when it's natural, it has a slower breakdown than some of the more synthetic products might have.
And, of course, once the fertilizer is applied to agricultural land, a new crop begins to grow, and the cycle starts anew. The benefits of using food waste disposers are clear. Food waste sent through a disposer to a wastewater treatment plant can be converted into biosolids for use as fertilizer, and the methane generated during the process can be captured and used for energy. I hope we've helped you understand the impact this can have on the environment, and why adding food waste to a landfill has its limitations, why composting is a great option but isn't always practical for everyone everywhere, and why using a food waste disposer can be both practical and environmentally responsible and may present the best option. One question you might have is about operation of the disposer. There are trade-offs with all waste management systems, and yes, you'll use water to run a disposer, but not much. For the average family on a given day, a food waste disposer uses about the same as a toilet flush per person, and about 1% or less of a household's water usage. And the electricity required to run a disposer for a typical family costs less than 50 cents a year, about what a single 100-watt light bulb uses over 3 days. Thanks for taking the time to learn about food waste disposers and the environment. Remember, when it comes to food waste, disposers can be both practical and environmentally responsible.
The following procedures will help you operate an InSinkErator food service disposer properly. First, let's discuss what should and shouldn't be placed into the disposer. Items that can be placed into the disposer consist of fruits, vegetables, meat, poultry, dairy products, breads and grain products, bones, and seafood. Items that should not be placed into the InSinkErator disposer consist of large amounts of stringy and fibrous materials, such as artichokes, pineapple tops, corn husks, as well as oyster shells, as these items may cause drain line clogs. It is also recommended to avoid silverware, soda cans, glass, lids, plastic wrap, latex gloves, and corrosive chemicals. Now, we're ready to operate the disposer. If this is a new installation, make sure there is no construction debris in the disposer grind chamber. Do not preload the disposer with food waste prior to starting. Push the start button on the control panel to turn on the disposer and start water flowing into the disposer. Feed food waste into the disposer in a steady, continuous flow. This food waste is ground into small particles in the disposer grind chamber. The ground food waste is then transferred through the plumbing into the main sewer line and ends up at the wastewater treatment plant for processing. After all food waste is flushed away, allow the disposer to run for 30 to 60 seconds to clear itself before pushing the stop button on the control center to stop the unit. If a disposer should experience a jam, the disposer overload will trip. To free a jam, follow these steps. Turn the control off, and if equipped, turn off the disconnect switch. Reach into the disposer and remove excess material. Does the rotating shredder spin freely? If not, place the de-jamming wrench down onto the rotating shredder breaker bars and rotate back and forth until the jam is freed. Then remove the jammed item. Press the disposer overload reset button. If equipped, turn on the disconnect switch and wait 30 seconds. Turn the disposer on and begin feeding food waste into the disposer. Do not use a hammer and pry bar, as this may damage the rotating shredder. In review, to ensure optimal operation of your InSinkErator food waste disposer, we recommend that you start the unit prior to loading it. Avoid batch feeding. Gradually feed food waste and allow the unit to operate between 30 to 60 seconds after the last load of food waste has been processed. Using an InSinkErator food service disposer will help you reduce labor costs, reduce waste hauling charges, increase efficiency, and improve sanitation in your kitchen. And it's good for the environment by keeping food waste out of landfills while using minimal water and electricity. Also, food waste put down the disposer can be captured as biosolids and used as fertilizer. Methane gas produced during treatment can be captured and recycled as energy. For more details on troubleshooting and operation, reference the installation manual included with your disposer. All disposers are backed by a 1-year on-site warranty on parts and labor. InSinkErator, the most trusted name in food waste management.